Today I am going to make homemade apple cider, and I figured I would make a little video and share the recipe and the process with you. The recipe calls for 10 to 12 apples. You can use the same kind of apples or you can mix it up. For my apple cider I'm going to use some ambrosia apples, Macintosh apples, and I've also got 2 Granny Smith apples that I'm going to throw in as well just to give it that little tartness. The recipe also calls for 2 oranges, about a 1-inch chunk of ginger. It calls for 4 cinnamon sticks, but I am going to use 5, and 1 tablespoon, I believe, of whole cloves. Funny story about cloves. I've had this little jar for about 6 months now, and I use them sparingly because I cannot find cloves anywhere on the entire North Island. I've been to all the grocery stores and nobody has them. So, cloves. It also calls for some sweetener. It says either maple syrup or brown sugar, and I am going to use both. To start off, you're going to want to get yourself a good sized pot. The recipe also calls for 16 cups of water, give or take. Then you are going to want to take your apples and quarter them, which is basically cutting them into quarters. You cut it into half, and then you cut the half into half. I like to take a paring knife and remove just the little part out. And then we're going to put these in the pot. Next, we are going to quarter our oranges, and we're going to put those into the pot as well. I think my pot might be a little too small to hold everything with the water, so I'm going to use a bigger pot. You can definitely see this is not going to hold 16 cups of water, so I am going to find myself a bigger pot, and then we will take it from there. I found a suitable pot, so I have my apples and oranges in there. I'm going to throw in the cinnamon sticks. I'm just going to cut the ginger up a little bit into a couple chunks, and then throw that in there as well, and then some cloves. Going to use the last of them because that's about a teaspoon. Then it calls for 16 cups of water, so I'm going to add my water in now. There is 16 cups of water. Everything is just kind of covered up, so now I'm going to take this over to my oven and put it on the stovetop. Next, we're going to heat this up to a simmer, and we're going to cover it for about 2 hours just until everything is soft, and then we will go on to the next step. After I brought the cider to a boil on my stove, I thought it would be fun to put it on my wood stove, so I did that, and now it's just simmering away, and my house smells absolutely amazing. So the cider's been simmering for a couple hours, and I just took the lid off, and now I'm going to mash up all of the apples, and then cover it again and let it simmer for 1 more hour. Now that I have the cider off of the stove, with a pair of tongs, I'm just going to take out the cinnamon sticks and the orange peels, and then I'm going to use a fine mesh strainer, and I'm going to strain it into another pot. I like to use a spoon also just to mix everything around and get as much of the liquid out as possible. And I'm also going to save all of the strained apples because what you have left over after you've strained it is just a really beautiful, flavorful applesauce. You can use applesauce for all kinds of things. I think perhaps tonight I may have pork chops and use some of my applesauce on the pork chops. So I've just got another bowl, and then I'm going to put my remaining apples in there. And as you can see, this is the applesauce that I have. Now that I have the cider strained, I'm going to add in some maple syrup. And I'm also going to put some brown sugar in. It says to use about 1/2 cup, but I'm just going to do it to taste and add little bits in at a time, and then if it needs more, I will add more. The cider is all done, and I've got some in my favorite cup, so I'm going to sit here in silence and enjoy a nice hot cup of apple cider.